listening to The Gender Rebels.
I'm Kathleen, a cis woman and ally.
And I'm Faith, a trans woman.
Gender Rebels is a question and answer podcast that explores life outside the gender binary.
A big thanks to our Patreon supporters.
If you'd like to support the show, go to patreon.com/genderrebels. Hey everyone, I'm Kath.
And I'm Faith.
Faith, I think we have a listener question for you.
We do.
Yay!
We do. This one comes to us from Facebook, and it's Bernadette.
Thanks, Bernadette.
Bernadette says, Faith, I have a question. Okay, first of all, Bernadette, thank you for listening and for writing. I'm not the only one in this podcast.
You are, though. You're the star of the podcast.
No, I'm just half of the Gender Rebels. Without this podcast, without Kath, there would just be me talking to myself, and it would not be anywhere near exciting.
What if Bernadette's question speaks directly to a trans experience?
It could. So let's read her actual question.
Instead of yelling at her.
Yes, instead of yelling at her. I always resort to yelling. It's my base instinct. Okay. So, someone close to me has come out to me as trans, and I'm so proud of her, but so many things in the news scare me. I know she finds them scary too. I just wonder, if you were facing starting transition in today's world, would you? Would any of the threats to trans rights going on today give you pause if you were still at the beginning of this process?
Cool question. Thank you for writing in, Bernadette. So I guess maybe the difference is you need to think about what the world was like when you started transitioning versus how the world is now.
Here's the thing, and I want to say this to Bernadette's friend just came out.
Yay!
And of course she's scared, because I'm scared too. I go through cycles where I just have to check out of the news because it's too, just, it puts me in too bad a mood.
Yes.
So in the United States, people are trying to roll back transgender protections in the Justice Department. That's housing, job discrimination, adoption, things like this. And that sucks. Trans people in the military are getting screwed over, even after they've honorably served our country. And that is really shitty, especially coming from people who claim to support the troops. And actually get mad at other protesters because how dare you insult the troops like that when you actually treat the troops like shit yourself because you're kicking them out of their job.
We're not even talking about VA funding.
Yeah, that's a whole separate issue.
Could.
So there's a lot bad in this world. And that's just the United States. There's other countries where it's worse. People in the UK are still putting up with a lot of bullshit gatekeeping. I know, is Finland still castrating people before they transition?
Not too sure.
Okay, something like that. There's also the entire world of Saudi Arabia and Dubai and places like that where I would be arrested on site at the airport when I tried to enter the country. And that has happened to people, and it sucks. And so, it's not a great time to be trans, but it's never really been a great time to be trans. If only
I'd transitioned on May 14th, 2006!
Yeah, we're actually, still, I'll tell you what. We are actually probably in the United States, the best time for trans people, and I'll tell you why. It's because I remember when the first time our president was trying to kick trans people out of the military. People fought that.
Yes.
And I don't mean Democrats and trans people in the LGBT community. I mean people like my mom and Republicans, people and conservative people in the suburbs.
High up officers in the military, Pentagon leadership. There was a backlash. It didn't work the first time.
It didn't work the first time. No. Yeah. And so every time, they're trying to roll back our rights, but this time people care. And it's not just trans people fighting for our rights. It's ordinary people. Because
you're pretty ordinary, sorry.
It's not just trans people fighting for our rights, it's everyone else. Also fighting for our rights.
The cis majority.
Yeah. And so this is actually a good time to be trans because we've shown that we don't go down quietly.
Mm-hmm.
And we've shown that we've got allies.
You've got tremendous support. There were protests in Times Square the day he tweeted his stupid policy that he didn't run by any actual military people. He just thought up in his brain. There was a protest that day. And that's just in New York. There were protests all over the country. There is a visibility to transgender people now. There are famous transgender people now. People know the word now. There are kids, lucky kids with awesome parents who are just living their lives now. This is a thing now. And like many things, nobody cares except for a few loud people on Fox News and a few loud people on the internet. Mm-hmm. So, but that surprised me when you said now is as good a time. Wouldn't the Obama administration have been a better time?
Obama was a bajillion times better than our current president.
Obviously.
And a bajillion times better than the president who preceded him.
Yes.
Okay?
Obviously.
But he was a little slow on the uptick when it came to LGBTQ stuff.
It's true.
He did have to because the country was there before really a lot of our politicians were. And Barack Obama, when he campaigned, he said he was against gay marriage,
True, yeah.
and he eventually did.
What do you have? He had a change of heart. There was some term for what he went through, and
yeah. So it's like, Obama did a lot of good stuff for trans people, and the stuff for the he made sure the Justice Department had those protections extended to trans people. Mm-hmm. He made sure that trans people could serve in the military openly. Mm-hmm. And so that was good. He did a lot of good stuff. It was late. It was like not throughout his whole term, and it took him a little bit to get there. But
I have a little side question for you.
Yeah.
And then we'll get back to the topic at hand. But Obama said trans people can serve openly in the armed forces. We welcome their service. They are loyal Americans. Just like a soldier with diabetes or migraines, we will support them medically and we appreciate their service. And now y'all can be open and out about it. Mm-hmm. And trans service members everywhere were like, woohoo! And they came out. And now it's like this huge bait and switch. One of the worst baits and switches I've ever heard of ever. Would it have been better if Obama had not said that in the first place?
No, because then it would have taken even longer. And again, I'm not a trans service person. I can't speak for them. But it's going to get reversed again. Mm-hmm. And, we've seen a lot of people fight for this. And ultimately, no, I don't want to say it's better to not have had any progress.
Okay.
Than to, because someone
had it and lost it.
Than have had it. We can get it back, and we will. So, I came out right at the start of the Trump presidency. I literally came out at work, oh my gosh, probably like 3 weeks after the election.
Whoa, really?
Yeah, remember?
Wow.
And I was like so excited. I'll be like, we'll have the first female president, and I'm going to join the party, it'll be yeah. And I
wish I were in that timeline.
Yeah,
I bet the us in that timeline are having a blast right now.
We should go over to CERN and start monkeying with their equipment. Yeah. That's the problem. And actually, the timeline differentiated in 2012, I would like to point out.
Really?
Oh, yeah. It was when CERN started up.
I mean,
that's when the timeline diverged. Why do you think all this Mandela stuff and all this, Berenstain Bear stuff, that all started since then? We're in the new timeline.
She's got this look on her face like, how do you not know this? It's kind of borderline contempt.
Anyway,
okay.
So we're in this current timeline, and this is what we're living in, and I'm out in this timeline.
Mm-hmm.
I presented female many, many times back during the Bush administration or during the Clinton administration, and
I almost corrected you and said the first Clinton administration. Okay, yes.
So I was out in like Georgia, in suburban Georgia, Not out, but
yeah, I was gonna say,
presenting,
when you
presenting,
say out,
presenting.
You were physically outside in a dress. Yes.
Yes.
You weren't out.
No, I was not
indoors.
trying to go to work or school or
Yeah.
anything like that.
Or your family.
Or my family or church or whatever.
Yeah. Okay.
And so I think people came out back then. People came out in the nights. Because when I first got the internet in like 98, when I was like in college, 97, 98, like the first thing I looked up was like trans stuff. Transsexuals. And there were tons of people's homepages. And people had their homepages and they called themselves a web mistress. And they were like, female me instead of email. It was Wild West days. I had a website on GeoCities. It had a hit counter. You better believe it had a hit counter.
How many hits did you get?
Respectable. You know, not really. No, but...
No, I believe you did. I've seen pictures of you in that silver dress.
Oh, this was pre-silver. Yeah,
okay.
This was college.
So baby Faith in your.
I got my first like faithtobrook.com website when it was Faith to Brook at Angel Fire first.
Angel Fire.
And it was that was like 2002 maybe.
Okay.
And then eventually, I think within a year or two, it was faithtobrook.com, and it's been faithtobrook.com since then.
Okay.
I've had a website for a long time.
All right.
But people were coming out. People were out ages ago. You know, you can read about trans people in history.
Of course.
And there were a few people, not as many out today, but there were plenty.
Christine Jorgensen.
Yeah.
The Dutch girl.
Yes. The Danish girl.
The Danish girl.
The Dutch girl is different.
That was a different movie. Forget I said it. Don't Google it, guys.
Don't watch the Dutch girl.
Google it. Don't even look it up.
We thought it was the Danish girl, but it turned out to be incredibly...
Just don't.
Just don't.
Please don't.
So...
The Danish girl.
Not the Dutch girl. Do not watch the Dutch girl.
Again, I cannot overemphasize. Please don't Google the Dutch girl.
So... No, I don't think... I think when people come out, when a trans person chooses to come out, and they're like, you know what? I want to be me. I want to be the real me. Mm-hmm. Of course we worry about stuff. Mm-hmm. Of course we worry, am I going to be able to have a family that loves me? Am I going to have a roof over my head? Mm-hmm. Am I going to have a job? Are my friends going to reject me? Is my partner going to reject me? Mm-hmm. Is the government going to issue me a passport? Will I get arrested? Will I get assaulted? Mm-hmm. These are all things that trans people historically and today have had to deal with.
Yes.
And we all, when we transition, I'm going to speak for all trans people.
Go ahead.
When we transition, we look at that. We know that better than anyone. We all have that fear churning up our guts that says, you shouldn't do this because X, Y, Z, because... It's going to be hard because people might reject you, because you might lose your job, because you might lose your house, because life might spiral into crap. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. We know that. We've been there. Those thoughts have been with us. And we chose still to come out.
You do it anyway. That is so... Wow.
That's what it means.
That says a lot about how important
I think it does. And we want to be our true selves. Mm-hmm. And what was the thing you said of what if you had to wear a clown costume every day?
Yes. If the normal thing is everyone shows up in a clown costume and you gotta pretend to like wearing a clown costume. Because that's what everyone does. Uh-huh. So you have to do it. End of discussion.
Yeah. And so it's... You would... It's different. It's deeper than that, even.
Of course.
But it goes more to the core of your being.
Of a horrible...
it's analogy. Yeah, it's an analogy.
Dystopian clown world. I would wear the clown costume and pretend I liked it. Because I'm sort of passive and cowardly. So,
yeah.
But you're right. It goes deeper than that.
I love you passive, cowardly person.
This is a great clown outfit.
So...
Knowing the risks. Mm-hmm. You'd do it anyway.
Yeah, and this just brings me back to the whole idea that on that June night in Greenwich Village, in the West Village, when cops raided Stonewall Inn, there were trans women there. Probably trans men too, probably non-binary people, gay people. There might have been just this person or two. And they were out. It was illegal for them to be themselves. You could get arrested. People did get arrested.
Mm-hmm.
People absolutely did lose their jobs. Mm-hmm. I have gay friends who are in their, who are elderly now, or older now, and grew up pre-Stonewall in New York, and they had beards, Yeah. Beard being the fake girlfriend that you bring to social functions or work functions that can be because otherwise you would lose your job.
Or you marry her. You could do that too.
You could do that, and people did that. And so people came out, people risked homelessness. They risked joblessness. The people who were partying at Stonewall that night were not rich bankers and stuff.
No.
They were young, poor street kids who did, in fact, risk homelessness. They knew homelessness was going to be a potentiality, and they chose it because they had to be themselves, and it was the only way they could be themselves. Mm-hmm. Other people would be themselves just inside their own home, or they would keep that secret. I still remember reading about like businessmen who would go on trips. Yeah. And they would have their other suitcase, and then in their hotel room they could dress up and be themselves. I mean, there's that guy in Catcher in the Rye that Holden Caulfield watches, and like people did that because that was the only way they could. They couldn't even tell their wife or someone. It was just the only way they could do it.
And this is before the internet. Can you imagine? Like there were newsletters or magazines. Like there were secret ways to talk about it, but. Can you imagine?
It was very seedy. It was very seedy, and it sort of interwove with porn because the ads would be like in the back of porno mags. And this was one of the things that, if you ever get a chance to read the book Queer and Pleasant Danger,
link down below. It is so good.
Kate Bornstein.
Yes,
it's Queer and Pleasant Danger by Kate Bornstein. It is such a phenomenal book. I need to buy a copy. I want to own it because that's a book I want to read over and over again. But it's so fun and well written. It's someone who's like in like 70s New York, and there were out trans women because they encounter them and they worked in sex work. Because those were the only jobs they could get. And even then, guys were still hooking up with trans women back then.
They always will.
Yep.
Straight cis guys.
And so, but Kate Bornstein talks about going to like, the store. There'd be like one store in Manhattan that would sell like breast form. And this is New York City, like big, seedy 70s trash can on fire porn graffiti theaters everywhere. In Times Square. Yeah, this is Taxi Driver in New York City. Yeah. And there was like one store, and even then it was like you had to like go up. It wasn't on street level. It was like up, through some doors discreetly, and they sold like breast forms and hip pads and dresses and
big shoes,
porn. They did also sell porn. Yeah. And this was all illegal. Being trans was illegal. Being out, you had to pass.
And any of those people selling you that stuff or interacting with you or looking at you, you were very vulnerable.
It was the equivalent of buying drugs today. Yeah. You've got to trust the person you're buying from.
It was illegal. And
they have to trust you.
You can be in big trouble really easily. You're a vulnerable population.
Yeah. And then people like Candy Darling or Jackie Curtis or people like that who were out, they were also, for as glamorous as I try to make the Andy Warhol's factory in the 60s to be, those were also poor, half-starved kids. Yeah. Andy Warhol is today, one of the biggest names of the 20th century, and his works sell for hundreds of millions of dollars. But back then, these Andy Warhol's movies were not making money. They had a bit of money, but they were not rich. A lot of them were scraping by. Okay. Andy Warhol painted canned soup because that's all he ate. But, so The glam gets added later.
Yeah.
And the gloss gets added later. It
Yeah.
was gritty and shitty, and these people were poor and hungry.
Yeah.
But they were out, because that's being out and being themselves was so important. And these are our courageous forebears. These are the people who came out. And
we wouldn't be here without them.
Yeah, before there were protests in Times Square because someone tried to take away trans rights. Before Time magazine was putting trans people on the cover. This is the world we live in. The world we live in is not that great.
No.
We try in our own ways to make it great, and we will keep trying.
It's gonna be great. It's gonna be greater.
The world gets better, and the world is. By every single metric.
Yeah.
The world is getting better, and we are in the golden age of humanity.
Except climate change.
Except for climate change, yes.
Otherwise, yes, it is.
Literacy rates, wealth.
Vaccination rates.
Yeah, everything is getting better.
Education.
Yeah, education. Internet access. By almost every metric you can come up with, humanity is doing better now than we were at any other time in our history. And that includes LGBTQ rights. I think that what we're seeing now, a lot of these right-wing politicians in the US and Europe and in other places, is a direct response to that.
Yeah. It's entirely predictable and entirely expected, and no less shitty for being so fucking cliched. Yeah.
And so, even though things are getting better, that line is not a straight line up.
Yeah, it's a jagged line.
It is a jagged line, because stuff gets bad for a bit, stuff goes back, but it's still going up.
The overall trend.
But I think this is one of the things that the last few years has taught me. And I've said this on the show before, so if y'all are sick of hearing it,
too bad!
People my age thought that our rights had been fought for, and we were done. We didn't realize that fighting for our rights was something every generation has to do. And I'm reminded of this quote by Martin Luther King Jr., where he says, "Human progress is neither automatic nor inevitable. Every step toward the goal of justice requires sacrifice, suffering, and struggle, the tireless exertions and passionate concern of dedicated individuals." That's all of us.
Yeah.
That's all of us. We all have to do our part, because the world sucks, and we can make it better.
And it's the only way. It works.
It is.
It will get there. But we do have to work at it.
We will, and we are, and we are, and we will
and
be
every
double.
generation is gonna have to work at it. Recently, we had an episode where we're like, I can't believe we're still fighting for this stuff. That line is jagged. You will win things and lose things, and win things and lose things. You have to never give up the fight. But things are getting better.
And trans people are going to be out.
Yeah.
Trans people are going to be them.
Yeah.
And it's never going to be a good time to transition. It never will. It's like someone said, if you try to wait until a good time to have kids, there's never a good time.
Never
if
have
you try
kids.
to wait until a good time to transition,
Nope.
It's never a good time. You transition when it's right and right for you.
Transition when it's right enough.
Yeah. And we're going out to Pride. Pride is this week. New York City Pride's in a few days. A lot of you may have already celebrated Pride, and that's awesome.
Yeah.
We are celebrating, and as part of that, we're celebrating the fact that we do come out in imperfect circumstances. And we're celebrating because someone dared throw a brick 50 years ago, and that person came out in even worse circumstances. And it's been this 50 years that have gotten us where we are. And that's 50 years of struggle, and things are even better now than when Marsha P. Johnson came out. And so we have a lot to celebrate. But Bernadette, to answer your question, it's never a right time. There will never be a right time. But we can, through struggle, make the time better for the next people.
Yes. We can get it righter and righter and righter, but we're never going to get 100% right.
Nope.
It is like an asymptote. Do you know what that is?
We've had this discussion on
I
the
bring
show
up
before.
asymptotes whenever I can.
Yes.
Literally every single chance.
I'm always confused by the asymptote.
Which it is, the disambiguation is necessary.
It's the northern asymptote and the
Yes.
southern asymptote,
Exactly.
and they're very different creatures. But we're going to go march and celebrate because we've earned it.
Mhm.
But then the next morning, we're going to recover.
Yeah.
But then the
The
day after that, we're going to redouble our struggle and our effort.
Yeah. Because it never stops, but the good news is we never stop either.
Yeah. And people will always be transitioning because that's the nature of people and it's the nature of trans people.
Mm-hmm.
And there will always be people who are assholes, and we will always try to work against them. And hey, we come out. Your friend came out, Bernadette. I came out. Plenty of people came out before, and plenty of people will come out after. So don't worry about the world being imperfect. Worry about ways you can fix it. And don't worry about the ways you can fix it. Just find some and do
Just
it.
fucking fix it. Come on, Bernadette. Why are you writing us when you could be out protesting?
I would like to point out that all of this is Bernadette's fault.
100%. Yeah.
100%.
If you would just fix this, Bernadette, we could have skipped this whole conversation. Well, thanks for sending your question, Bernadette.
Thank you, Bernadette.
And thanks for listening.
It's not actually Bernadette's fault.
It's mostly Bernadette's fault.
It's like 80%.
Thanks for listening, everybody.
All right, everyone.
Happy Pride. This is our
Yeah.
last episode of Pride Month. Go out and celebrate if you can, if it's safe, or if you already did celebrate. I hope you had a blast and wore sunscreen and drank water. And I love June.
Yeah,
June's a good month.
it is.
We'll talk to you next time.
All right, everyone.
Bye.
If you've enjoyed this episode and want to help us keep making more great content, go to patreon.com/genderrebels,
We have many different levels of support and lots of great rewards.
including Drinks with the Gender Rebels at Stonewall.
Please leave a 5-star review on iTunes. That makes it easier for other people to find us.
And send your questions to questions@genderrebels.com or find us on Twitter @thegenderrebels.
Music for the Gender Rebels is by Jasper the Colossal. Follow the link down below or download them on iTunes today.
And for all our episodes, visit genderrebels.com.
The Gender Rebels is a Come Back Sync production, copyright 2019. All rights reserved.
And to all you gender rebels out there, keep rebelling.
Bye.
Bye.
Threats to trans rights going on today give you pause if you were still at the beginning of this process? Could you please not use my real name if you go on air? Thanks. I just used your first name.
We'll bleep it out.
Do you want to restart?
No, I'll just bleep it out.
Okay. Here, I'll just say this. Bernadette.
Bernadette's.
Bernadette's.
Bernadette. Bernadette.
Yeah.
Thanks, Bernadette. Cool question. Thank you for writing in, Bernadette. So I guess maybe the difference is you need